to the Fantasy Footballers Dynasty podcast with Borg, Betz, and a baller.
Welcome in. It's the Fantasy Footballers Dynasty podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Borgnoni, and I am joined today by two ballers, Jason and Mike.
Oh, baby. It's going to be a good show.
Indeed it will.
I think it's going to be okay. And I think you two boys are going to make it because you just lasted the first 30 seconds of the show, which I know for YouTube is your favorite part. You love it.
Yes. Big here. It's all. That's good work, Kyle. Way to speak to like 5% of the audience. Which,
hey, they care.
No, they definitely do care, and we love them, which is why we offer them the show, and we're always trying to improve it. For the majority of people who are on the audio side of it, we are available on YouTube, YouTube.com. Oh, wait, what's our URL?
Do we even have one? I don't even know.
It's got to have one. The channel is growing at epic proportions.
I'll find it out.
This is a great intro. But anyways, we're on YouTube. Just go search for the Fantasy Footballers Dynasty podcast. And thus far, the intro for the show, when the music comes on, and you are rocking out to an incredible intro, we are sitting here looking like goobers because we're just like, the music's playing, but we're not talking. So we're working on an intro to get rid of that because I told everyone this is the worst 30 seconds of my life.
Yeah, and I wanted those people to have their voice heard and that we hear you. We understand. And we're used to each other.
That was my voice. That wasn't anyone else. That was just me.
Yeah, it's a real selfish thing.
Yeah.
I think the people like watching him awkwardly nod his head through the music.
Yeah, and you guys had the debate on the main show, I believe yesterday, Jason, of is it audio or video? Which one do you prefer for people to see you and know you as?
Right. Am I working on my voice or working on my body?
Oh, right.
Because I very much would rather work on my voice.
Hey, you've had years of practice. On this show, we're going to have a special Dynasty mailbag, even get into a little rapid round, something that we do only on the Footcast. So there's a lot of good stuff around Footballers headquarters right now, including a couple more days away from the ultimate draft kit.
Oh, brother.
UDKplus.com. And what I wrote down, because there's so many things jam-packed here, but the projections is kind of the bread and butter of this, that you guys don't just go in and say, I'm going to rank this player because I feel like Brandon Ayuk should be a top 10 wide receiver, even though Mike might be a little biased.
Look, he wasn't in my top 10, but then I traded for him in Dynasty and top 10 wide receiver. Yeah.
It's a part of the process, but I mean, you guys are at the finish line. Our team's almost at the finish line, and on Saturday, the UDK will be released. So anything that's just on your mind, just a couple of days away with the UDK.
For me, it's a bunch of final tweaks. I'm going back through each team, making sure that I agree with what it's like when you're statting these guys out, you're going through these teams, you're doing all the research. We're human beings. It's like, what was my mood? Was I feeling generous? Was I angry?
Sure.
And so I just like going back through and seeing like, oh, you know what? I probably didn't do enough for Keon Coleman. I did too much for Ladd McConkey, whatever it is. And then just kind of fine-tooth comb everything to make sure make sure I agree with what I'm putting out there. And so, we've got a couple days left before we launch. Very exciting.
Yeah, so do you have a little note in the rankings that say like, okay, I was looking at the Panthers and I was a little cranky that day? Like, do you have a little side note?
I don't have cranky notes. I do have notes. Like I've got a big kind of whiteboard on my desk, and I just write down players' names that I need to make sure I go back and take another look at, either the film or the just the stats, because I'm like, I don't think I gave this player a fair shot, or I think I was on some sauce when I fell in love with this player, something like that. It's like the range of outcomes.
On some sauce.
You're revealing too many of your secrets, Jason.
No, I mean, I'm not really ever. It's just a fun way to say it.
Yeah, and the beauty of the UDK is that it's updated all throughout the summer. So it's not like you guys just arrive at one point and one projection, and then we move on. It's like, okay, well, when we get new information, of this running back battle, or, this player is running with the ones and it's consistent, it moves into preseason, we actually do change the projections.
Absolutely.
Oh, for sure. What we launched this weekend is going to be as good as it could get for this weekend, but it will be very different than a month from now and a month from then and a month from then and all the way up until kickoff.
Yeah, and we'll keep adding stuff all throughout the summer, including some exclusive Dynasty articles for you Dynasty folk. But I wanted to start us off by doing something that you two, I think, enjoy more than anything else. We're going to play a little game.
I want to play a game.
The two of y'all enjoy a good game on the podcast, but I've noticed that Andy is warming up to it. And the way that I have to do with Andy is I have to feed him something that only he believes so that he can fight you guys. That's the only way that he'll get in on a game, because sometimes he thinks, this is silly.
I love when the game brings you, like, it turns your opinion upside down. That's when it's the best.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah, part of this is just silly, but I think for this exercise, an underrated part of Dynasty is thinking about it through the lens of redraft. It's not like we play Dynasty and just throw out a whole year of talking about redraft. Like, the context is you're playing for this year. Hopefully, you're not playing for 4 years down the road or wherever else. So in Dynasty, redraft data isn't irrelevant. And I think a lot of times it's just kind of thrown out the door. We look at Dynasty ADP, but with your league mates, it can kind of be a good gauge of, like, here's where the sentiment is for this player. So when we talk about redraft ADP and we have that in the Ultimate Draft Kit, don't just throw that aside because you're in a Dynasty league. And, like, you can look at where players are going this year and kind of gauge, like, are they going to underperform? Are they, does your league think, like, oh, they're going to suck for a year, they're a rookie wide receiver? Or in the case of players like Marvin Harrison, like, they're going to crush this year. So we're going to play a game where I'm going to share with you guys the ADP of where the rookie wide receivers are going in redraft. And I want you guys to kind of gauge, I want to see the difference between you two of whether you feel confident in the redraft rank, the Dynasty rank, both of them, or neither. I want to see if you guys line up on these players.
That's a lot of options.
All right.
So I looked at every single rookie wide receiver over the last decade, and Marvin Harrison Jr. just so happens to be the highest drafted rookie wide receiver of all time in redraft. We've talked about that. He's going as wide receiver 9 right now, and in Dynasty leagues, he's taken in startups as the wide receiver 4. Which one are you least confident in this year between those two ranks?
I'll go first here. I am least confident in the redraft ranking for this year. I think the long term, I don't see a way that Marvin Harrison fails as a career. I think he's going to be a long term stud wide receiver for 8 years, and so taking him as the 4th in a dynasty, I have no problem with that at all. Now, this version of the Arizona Cardinals, this version of their offensive line, first year with Kyler, rookie season, man, taking him at the back of the first round, which is where I've seen him go a lot, is very, very spicy. It's funny because when I compare the names and I say, okay, do I want the new hotness of Marvin Harrison Jr. or Devontae Adams, the old hotness, the guy on the way up or the guy on the way down? You could make an easy argument there that it should be Marvin Harrison Jr. But it's really hard to bank on that and say I'm so confident that I'm going to take my first round pick or my top of the second round pick for this season and rely on a rookie. So I very much more on the dynasty side.
I have nothing to add. I would say that I'm more confident in the long-term output for him. That ADP for a guy who's never touched the ball in the NFL, and it works for running backs. We know that rookie running backs, as long as they have some sort of draft capital, if they're starting, it's gonna work. It will work for fantasy football. Wide receivers, a bit more difficult.
Yeah, and he's gonna hold this value even if he puts up, I don't know, 750 and 5 touchdowns.
Yeah, he will.
He's gonna hold value as a top 5-ish wide receiver. Just as young. And you like the situation. So Malik Nabers is actually being drafted as the 2nd highest rookie wide receiver of all time in redraft, 19th overall. Yes, he's going ahead of where Amari Cooper went, who used to hold the title. So keep in mind wide receivers are pushed up if you're playing best ball, if you're playing redraft. But yeah, Malik Nabers is at 19 right now. And in Dynasty, he's 7th in startup. So is this like, I'm nervous about both? Because with rankings, it's not just like, here's the median outcome. There's a range of outcomes for these players. It's not just one thing. So I don't know, Jason, how do you feel?
So I'm surprised that he's the second highest drafted of all time. That I think that is more telling.
Who's third?
Amari Cooper.
Cooper.
Okay.
I think it's more telling of the fantasy community getting more on top of the value in today's NFL of rookie wide receivers. And also, if you go back 10 years ago, rookie wide receivers didn't really break out that much. You've got 2014, exactly 10 years ago, where it was like that was the season they started breaking out as rookie wide receivers. I'm going to go ahead and say I'm confident in both. I think that as the wide receiver 19 in redraft, I feel fine. His opportunity is not all that different than Marvin Harrison's. His talent is not all that different than Marvin Harrison's. Obviously, worse quarterback play, but good enough quarterback play to, I don't think he's going to not be able to get screens or not be able to get enough catches to put up, wide receiver 2 numbers, which is where he's being drafted. And then, of course, long term, if they improve the team and the quarterback, it should get better and better.
I'm struggling very much with Malik Nabers in redraft. I think I love the player. All my scouting, all my behind the scenes metrics are he's with Jason of the talent is not that far off, and I was of the opinion it depends on how an NFL offense wants to build. Like if they took Malik Nabers over Marv, it didn't bother me. What bothers me for redraft is, let's say, quickly looking over the two projections I have, both of them right around a 25% target share for Marvin and Malik Nabers, which would be like that's a good target share for a first-year wide receiver, but it's just the pie for the New York Giants. It's the pie and the quality. The ingredients of the pie are not that of the passing attack that the Arizona Cardinals have. So I am concerned for where people are taking him in redraft, fully acknowledging the upside and the talent of the wide receiver, but while the NFL is changing, there is still historical stuff of like these rookies usually are around here. Every once in a while you get the outlier who really breaks through and becomes an elite option, but drafting Malik where he's going that's scary to me.
And just a reminder, we're using this as kind of a gauge and a sentiment of going into year one. This is the consensus of kind of what people believe they're going to produce. And we've talked a lot that there are certain thresholds we want dynasty wide receivers to hit in year one. And we have some content on the website for that. But Odunze is going as wide receiver 31 in redraft, 13 in dynasty startups. He's the 6th highest rookie wide receiver, right behind, hilariously, Nelson Aguilar in 2015. I did like three double checks.
Exactly. Look, it does not always work out for first-year rookie wide receivers.
I went back.
Wide receivers.
Yeah.
Yes. And I was like, what were we thinking in 2015? But anyway, he was drafted 20th overall.
I know what we were thinking. He was wait, Nelson Aguilar was drafted by the Eagles, right?
Correct.
Was that still Chip Kelly?
And he was super young. Like when he got drafted at USC, he was a super young player. The opportunity was there.
That right? Was that Chip Kelly?
I'm not sure if they still they might have.
There was an Eagles wide receiver, and we all were so excited because it was Chip Kelly. I don't know. Moving on.
Jordan Matthews was the thing for a little bit too. But
sure.
Rome Odunze is interesting because, it's
Chip
crowded.
Kelly. Was it? Yeah. That's why we were pumped.
It's a crowded wide receiver room, but I feel like he'll get a free pass even if he doesn't explode this year, knowing
100%.
It's a young team that he's going to hold back. I feel like he's kind of appropriately priced in redraft, and in Dynasty, I feel fine. So personally, I'm fine with both ranks.
I am not fine with the redraft rank.
Ooh.
I just have him. I have him much, much lower. The rookie quarterback coming in with two clear, better wide receivers ahead of you. Rome Odunze, I'm not speaking ill of Rome Odunze. He is not where Keenan Allen is right now. He is not where DJ Moore is right now. He is the third best receiver for a rookie quarterback. And so he scares me a lot in redraft leagues. For instance, I have Brian Thomas ahead of him. I have Ladd McConkey ahead of him. I've got Xavier Worthy ahead of him in redraft rankings. In redraft this season, I'm more confident in them. You can make a very easy and compelling case that Keon Coleman is someone that you should be has a much clearer path and a better quarterback today. So Odunze to me in redraft is someone I'm probably never going to get. I've got him like 20 spots past his ADP, and so I like the talent. I just hate the situation. So I'm much more confident in the dynasty ranking where the contract and the age for Keenan Allen, this isn't a franchise situation. I would be shocked if they Tyler Lockett it and extend him, given that he's, just 1 year on the team. He's older. He's a complete unrestricted free agent next year. So I expect Keenan to move on, Odunze to go into that, more 1A, 1B role starting next year. So yeah, I'm not thrilled with the redraft Odunze.
I have his redraft. My projections are like yours, Jay. They're much further behind for his actual ADP, but I don't hate the ADP because I think of the possible outs for Odunze to jump value real quickly. Of like you have two guys that can miss some time, and then Odunze is thrust into a much higher target share. I have him, with a moderate rookie season, but at that ADP, it doesn't bother me to take the shot on the kid. Like if Malik Nabers was there, that would be so fantastic. Obviously, Nabers is projected to be the 1, and Odunze is projected to be the 3, so different situation. But I think that there is enough ways. Look, similar to Jaxon, Smith-Njigba, which it didn't work out. It doesn't work out every time, but where he had the outs of if someone misses some time, JSN could actually have a breakout rookie campaign. That's how I kind of feel about Odunze, where I'm willing to take the gamble on the upside, knowing that I'm at the higher probability is that he's just fine-ish.
Let's just hit a couple more. I wanted to speak on Xavier Worthy because I looked at our projections in the Ultimate Draft Kit, and I found that what the sports books are saying his line is, what our projections are, and then his range of outcomes. I'm worried that a year from now, a player that a lot of people took at 104, 105 in their rookie drafts, the range of outcomes for him is, he couldn't deliver on this. So he's wide receiver 26 in Dynasty. It's fine. Wide receiver 37 in redraft leagues is, in my opinion, a bit bullish when we've seen them spread the ball out a ton. He's not the wide receiver 1. It's Travis Kelce on that team. So I'm a little worried about Worthy a year from now.
That ADP is after Odunze, though.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if you guys feel the same. Like it just feels like a fragile player compared to some of these other studs.
Yeah, like I said, my redraft ranking, I have Xavier Worthy ahead of Odunze. When I look at the quarterback play, maybe Caleb Williams is the next Patrick Mahomes. Awesome. You know who's the current Patrick Mahomes? Patrick Mahomes.
Josh Allen.
Yeah, fair. So I would rather have the quarterback play there. And you talk about, okay, well, Travis Kelce is the target number 1. That is absolutely the truth. Target number 2, okay, is it Rashee Rice? Is it Hollywood Brown?
Not for those first games, it won't
Well,
be.
right. It's certainly not to start the season. So is it Hollywood? Is it Xavier Worthy? It's a debate. It's up for debate. Hollywood Brown, with his heel trouble and what we saw last year, was not Keenan Allen and DJ Moore. So to me, I am more confident in the redraft of Xavier Worthy than I am in the redraft of Odunze. But I probably have I don't disagree with you that I've got Xavier Worthy a little bit behind what that ADP is right now. And man alive, I know it's OTAs and it's so early, but when these tiny speed guys, the thing that always like over and over and over and over and over and over and over is like, man, it could have happened. He got injured. It could have. He just couldn't stay healthy. It's like, he's what? He's already got a hamstring injury? I know it's like, I don't want to, from a dynasty perspective, I don't want to overblow that, right? Tiny, small guy, injured in the early offseason, Devon Achane, right? You could have overblown that last year and miss out on some great games. But it does make me just like get the heebie-jeebies where I'm like, oh, come on, man. Don't do this. I'm rooting for Xavier Worthy. I liked his film. I think he's a more talented wide receiver than some of these just tiny fast guys. You know, the Tyquan Thornton was no great wide receiver. Xavier Worthy, you know, broke out as a 17-year-old and was
freshman.
3 years, as a freshman, had 3 years of production, is a good route runner. Not the best hands in the world, but he's a solid wide receiver going to a really good offensive mind, a good offensive coach. So yeah, I'm fine taking the leap. I do agree that the range of outcomes on him is very wide. He could be a field stretcher, an important part to the offense, and be irrelevant for fantasy.
Yes.
I'm in, baby. Give me both of them.
I like it.
I mean, I'm playing to win here, and that Dynasty ADP, that's fine. If it doesn't work, I should be able to overcome that, and the same for the redraft. That's after Odunze. I also have Worthy projected higher for this season than Rome Odunze with Jaxon. So I'm all over that. Take that shot. He, to me, is the physically, like the size of him, yeah, that's not prototypical. It's starting to work more. And to me, this is the best prospect that Mahomes has played with. I mean, you would say Tyreek Hill, but Hill had fallen in the draft. So it's like when you factor in draft capital, production profile, eye test, so even better than Rice to me. So why would I not take the chance that he could turn into the one? And the argument of, well, Travis Kelce is the number one. Can we really – how high do we prop that up when you go into tight end rankings and you say, well, they're actually pulling back on his workload. He might not be the tight end one overall. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there has to be some flexibility there in the argument of, well, Kelce's declining and they're saving him more for the playoffs, but you're scared of him being the number one target all the time. Like, there has to be some gray area where Xavier Worthy fits in.
We'll have all this info on the website. I mean, we could have gone through the rest of the rookie wide receivers. I did find a fun fact. Over the last decade, only 4 wide receivers in the top 50 were drafted higher in redraft than they were in Dynasty. So, in other words, the year one outlook, people were bullish on it, and it was a late. So, these names were Henry Ruggs, that was drafted higher, Tajay Sharp, if you remember, that summer, Cooper Kupp, and Justin Jefferson.
Because Jefferson fell in, or like he was low in rookie drafts. He was he was like a double-digit round guy in redraft.
Yes. He went way later and then kind of got some steam in redraft at the very end. But yeah, we will have this for you on the website. Let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back. All right, we got a ton of questions that we are going to jump into. A lot of these come from the Dynasty channel and the Discord, where there is so much activity right now. I know for a lot of people, they're waiting for redraft, but Dynasty Superflex, Dynasty trade advice, every single day, people are hopping in there. So let's get into it.
Mailbag.
I like to give your pipes a little rest.
Oh, they need it right now, brother. My throat will never be cleared right now.
just on the IR for a while?
Dude, I don't know what's going on, but it is an unsavory, mucus-filled jungle back there.
Good. First question from Twitter is from Nick. I'm someone who was starting a Best Ball Dynasty League. What would be some helpful hints and differences from a non-Best Ball Dynasty? Jason, I believe you are in a Best Ball Dynasty League, or you have been at some point. Jeff Greenwood, one of our writers, did a Best Ball League for a while. But the biggest difference in Best Ball scoring is just you're going to get your optimal score. But I would say in a startup draft, you don't change your approach wildly.
Yeah, I would say I didn't change my approach at all. I mean, obviously there are the individual players, the more boom-bust guys, the downfield deep threat, could catch a 70-yard touchdown or disappear like a Marquez Valdez-Scantling type of player, where you go, okay, I'm more okay having them in the later rounds than other plotting guys. You're gonna look for upside, but for the most part, I mean, we've been in that league 2 years. We're going into
this is a super flex, right?
It's a super flex, yes. I've been in that league 2 years. I lost both championships, but I made it there, and I didn't change my approach at all. I never once thought this is best ball, so I'm going to go this way instead of that way.
The one area I will correct you, Jason, is it's a super flex, and your quarterback approach was if am I remembering that correctly, you're a hodgepodge.
Oh yeah, baby,
of just the nastiest boys,
nastiest.
because I think that could be we just talked about Superflex, the different ways to approach it, but especially in best ball when you don't even have to pick a start for when this quarterback is going to have a good week. I mean, you read off you were in the championship both years.
I was in the championship both years, and
did you get a quarterback injury that led to the nastiness, or did you approach your draft that way?
No, so I usually approach Superflex less bullish on quarterbacks than most people do. Most people think you just have to gotta have two studs, and no, you don't. And so I try to get value, especially in a dynasty. I want to load up on these wide receivers, and then take some late gambles. And really, because it's Superflex, my quarterbacks, now I know what you want me to do. You want me to read a list of all those quarterback names because I've done that before, and it's disgusting. They're not on my team anymore because after the rookie draft, I dropped 4 quarterbacks that weren't starters anymore this offseason. However, that's the point is in the season, you're going to have so many quarterback injuries. And, yeah, a lot of backups are rostered in, a Superflex dynasty. But certainly, I promise you, there's probably 10 that will be picked up off of waivers this year, and you can throw them out into your lineup. So, right now I've got Jordan Love, Jimmy Garoppolo, and Jared Goff as my only 3. That's it. When I ended last year, I think I had 9. I was just every backup quarterback that
have a pulse.
That an injury ahead of them, whoever it was, Jake Browning, it doesn't even matter. It doesn't matter if they're good. It doesn't matter if they're bad. Just pick them up. Injured quarterback ahead of them, just pick up the backup every single time, and that's been helpful. And yeah, you're probably right. The best ball side of it is really, really helpful. We share the stat every year on the show, but it's a decade running of there are more than 40 quarterbacks every year that have a top 12 performance. There's only 32 teams. You're talking about some of the dookiest players out there, the Joshua Dobbs and the just have monster weeks. And if you don't have to project it,
the Dookie boys,
you could best ball it in. That's not a bad strategy.
I think people in your league will overvalue who they think is a starting quarterback for this year in startups. So I got to get this. We talked last week, I got to get this guy because he's a starter, but he's the QB 29 or something. And we said that a third of the league turns over every single year. They're starting quarterback. So I think you want to grab a stud. You'd like to. But at the end of the day, your QB2, QB3, we said is often overvalued because people think they have a locked-in starter forever. So think about also, don't just inject players in your lineup or that you're drafting that are just up and down players only. Yes, you want players like that, the Mike Williams, Gabe Davis types, but those aren't the only players. You want to have a good mix, especially at wide receiver. Next question from Be Easy.
I've got some of the I dropped Jared Stidham. I dropped Hendon Hooker. I dropped Zach Wilson. Yeah, I mean, it was great. Just nasty boys.
Did you feel good having Zach Wilson on a roster?
Best ball, baby. I don't have to feel anything.
I felt nothing the whole time. Every start, just nothing. Startup pick is if you get to choose your pick, guys. This is from Be Easy. Where would you pick in a startup draft? First year dynasty player.
Okay, so we have no 3-round reversal.
And the rookies are included.
Oh, and the rookies are included. I mean, I like being find your tier of true wide receiver ones, and then go, either at the back of that or just before the back of that. And let me pull up my startup rankings here. So to me, Jay, let me see if you agree with this, that like Jefferson, Jamar, CeeDee, Amon-Ra, to me that's a tier of guys.
100%. Those are my
Okay,
top
you're with
4. I've got a Jamar Chase.
But I'm saying
one.
if I have them all together.
Sure.
Where,
yeah.
Jefferson is clearly the best player, but it's like for fantasy football, these guys are pretty close.
No, I mean, you can put them in any order.
Okay.
I wouldn't take any umbrage with anyone who says I've got Jefferson number 1, I've got Jefferson number 4. I've got Jamar Chase number 1, I've got him 4. I've got Amon-Ra 1, I've got him 4, CeeDee 1, CeeDee 4. I think those 4 are fine. So what that says, I think we're saying the same thing here, is get the 104.
Yeah.
Get one of those 4 guys, and because I love having one of those type of foundation cornerstone pieces for my lineup.
What if you had 2 of them?
Oh, this is a flex on our Dynasty League. You got CeeDee and Chase?
Yeah.
Oh, great. I'm so happy for you.
You sound like you're not actually happy, though.
I am not.
You would totally
you have
you would
my
waft your farts, Jason, if you could.
Oh, I can. I got the number 1 and number 2 running back.
Yeah.
He's got Jamar Chase and CeeDee Lamb. I've got Bijan and Brees. So we'll battle it out,
Yeah, we
brother.
All right, next question.
But the point being, the end of that tier with a guy that you're really happy to be the foundational piece of your team, then on the way back, your selection is just a little bit better. That's the whole reasoning, is thinking about your second-round pick.
Next question, what's more important, having one high-end wide receiver or a bunch of mids? And they listed mids like T. Higgins, Michael Pittman, Scary Terry, who are good but will never be top 10. So would you rather have 2 of those or one high-end guy in Dynasty?
I mean, the rest of the bench matters because I have to know who I'm able to, like, I have to start players, so who are they?
So your wide receiver 2 is Romeo Doubs.
Oof. If it's all the way down at Dobbs, then I'd rather have the 2. But if you have a guy who's like a wide receiver 3, I'd rather have a wide receiver 1 and a wide receiver 3-ish, a high level, that over 2 wide receiver 2s.
100%. If you could take T. Higgins and Michael Pittman, 2 of the I think better names that he mentioned here.
They're valuable.
If I could take T. Higgins and Michael Pittman from my roster and trade them for CeeDee Lamb, I wouldn't hesitate for one moment. Like in a vacuum, I would much rather have CeeDee Lamb than those 2 guys because I can fill in, some PPR points to get close to, what Michael Pittman has been doing. Pittman's consistent. He's a very good fantasy asset. But what CeeDee Lamb does is explode, or Jamar Chase, or those guys, like they put up points that win you weeks and win you championships. You just don't win championships with a roster full of 2s.
Yeah, and you don't trade away CeeDee Lamb in Dynasty. That's something that you should never, ever, ever do. It's just part of the process.
I will never do it.
I was looking at CeeDee Lamb today. Like, look at his 4 years and just see this steady progression, points per game, all of these. I mean, it's just, he's awesome. You like that one, Jason?
I hate Mike and Andy so much. I don't know why I didn't stick to my guns. And for those of you that aren't aware, a couple years ago, after the number 7 wide receiver performance of Jalen Waddle, I had CeeDee Lamb, who had not performed as well as Waddle, and I was offered Jalen Waddle for CeeDee Lamb, to which I rejected and said I like CeeDee Lamb more. And we brought that up on the show, and these 2 guys gave me so much crap. They were like, you're a fool. You got to take this, and they tried to convince me, and then they did convince me, and then I made the trade, and now I want CeeDee Lamb back. If my team was CeeDee Lamb,
would be very good.
Well, you're the champ right now.
Yeah.
I would be the champ right now.
At the time, like the way that the trajectory was going, I definitely was way hotter for Waddle. But I think Waddle bounces back in a big way this year.
I do too. I don't think Waddle is bad by any means, but obviously the breakout that happened with CeeDee, hindsight's 20/20.
Yeah, and I didn't see this happening for CeeDee. I thought CeeDee Lamb was just like a good top 12 wide receiver, but we'll see if it continues.
I think we forget that year 2 was kind of frustrating, where we kind of thought he would take the leap.
CeeDee?
For CeeDee.
Yeah, it was extremely frustrating.
Yeah. So right now we can look back, like Jason mentioned,
and the beginning of the year, the beginning of this year, the breakout year, the first 5 weeks for then we're just the CeeDee Lamb hour, but week 1 he was the wide receiver 32 with under 10 points. Then he had a great week, almost 20. Week 3 at Arizona, 8 points. 12 the next, 7 the next. Like, the beginning of the season was rough for CeeDee Lamb before the Rockets.
He had 1 touchdown in the first 5 weeks.
Yep.
Sounds like a Dak problem.
Next
It
question.
was for the first little bit. All right, next one. And this question I see come up in so many different forms, and it's hard to contextualize, but this one's from I'm Just Here for Football. Asks, how do I know if I'm a contender or rebuild? And also, what week of the season should I have this question answered?
You should have it answered twice. You should have it answered before the season, and then you should have it answered again by the trade deadline. The trade deadline's really, really, really easy. You know whether you're going to make the playoffs or not, whether you can make the playoffs. I mean, if you're staring down the barrel and you're like, oh, God, I've got to win out from here on out, and I look at my schedule, I'm like, oh, I got to play the 2 best teams, and I got to win out to make the playoffs, you're not in. And if you're not in this year, make some moves to help you next year. Like, if you're not going to win the championship, make moves to make your roster better next year. I would do that every time. If I'm not making the playoffs, that is your goal at the trade deadline, is make next year better. And go ahead and forget. That doesn't mean tear it down to the nubs like a full rebuild. It just means do things to make next year better than you would without doing things. Before the season, you've got to answer that question. And I'm almost always on, if you don't know that you're a rebuild,
then go.
Then you're not a rebuild.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, because if you're a real rebuild, y'all know it.
Yeah.
You guys, your team sucks.
You know the diaper's full.
I had to do that with Al, where for a while I'm his co-manager in the Dynasty League. Or I just had to say
Al didn't know it, did he?
He didn't know. He wanted to kind of keep making moves, and I just said, like, this, we need to wake up. This team needs to rebuild. But I think a lot of people make an excuse that, like, well, I don't really know. I probably should kind of rebuild, and then you kind of end up still staying in this middle ground forever. So I feel like almost people want someone to tell them they need to rebuild, and they're just waiting for someone else to kind of push them over. But and then by week, I don't know, 6 or 7, you should have some gauge on your league and how things are trending. And if you have the depth or injuries, like, you should know that.
I will say this. If people need to be told to rebuild, part of being told to rebuild, there's fear around that, right? And so, Kyle, you and Al have just gone through a serious rebuild. I would tear it down to the nubs. I mean, you had like half of the first-round picks this year, and your team's looking good. You've turned it around.
Much improved,
a lot. The process of the drastic rebuild, was it fun?
I came in and felt like a new CEO. Like, I had a direction. So I felt like I was only ever going one way, where for me it was fun. I think for Al it was tough to believe in it.
I know for sure that Al loved doing, like, it was fun. Once you start the process and you decide, I am a rebuilder, you think that process is just going to suck, that everything is bad, that the games don't matter, and it's not the truth. Like, rebuilding can be fun too, so don't be afraid of it to, like, go hard after it.
Yeah, it's your goal changes. Your goal changes from the week to week. I need more points than my opponent to I'm working the market. I'm getting value for my players. I'm getting more draft picks. And so I agree with these guys. And the last point I will make is you could be heading into the season looking at your roster going, well, I think it can compete some weeks, but maybe I'm like a 500 team. Let it ride out, because someone in the second round of your rookie draft is going to hit. Not all of them, but a few of them should hit. And, like, by week 6, if Kyron Williams goes down and you drafted Blake Corum, it's like, well, that instantly turns my team around from a mid-level to, well, now I can do something. Same for Marshawn Lloyd in Green Bay. Just saying, There's these lower rookie picks that are lower probability of hitting. There will still be hits, and it's possible you have them. And if the hit breaks out by week 7 or so, your team looks so much different, and the future outlook of your team can change overnight.
All right, next question from Ryan. Do you think adding a league median matchup each week would help or hurt? Does it make a league better?
I will be bringing this up for a vote in every league I'm in for the rest of my life to add it.
Yeah.
Mike, you played in one of those for probably like 4 or 5 years
for a while
before we ever introduced it into any of our leagues. And now about a third of my leagues have the median scoring. And what that is, if you're not familiar, is that every week you're basically playing 2 games. You're playing a game against your opponent. You get a win or a loss, and then you're playing against the league. Basically, if you're in the top half of the scores, you get a win. If you're in the bottom half, you get a loss. So essentially, every week you can go 2-0, 1-1, 0-2, and I thought, oh, that's a neat idea. That's neat. I wonder if that would be more fun. Mike talked about it for years, and then playing in it, experiencing it, it's so much more fun. I know some guys like Andy. Andy knows everybody else's matchup in our league of record, and we don't have median scoring there. He knows everyone else's score. He's so much more in tune. I'm like, I know my matchup.
I got my opponent.
Yeah, I forget sometimes who my opponent's got on the roster right now. But when I play in the league median, I'm looking at the entire league. I'm looking at everybody's score. I care so much more because not only do I have to win, I've got to score a lot of points. Or if I'm losing and I get that, I scored the second most points in the league and I lost, well, I went 1-1 because I'm in the top half. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, there is the aspect of fun that makes you more in tune with everyone else's matchups. Just brings a more camaraderie, a tighter league, but the true reason for it is to try and smooth out the rough edges of fantasy football, where you're the second. Jason had a year where he was, it was like a month straight where he was the second most points in the league.
It was awful,
and somehow every week he was against the person who scored the most. So Jason's 0-4.
Don't even know how I'm alive.
Or 0-5 right at that point. And you
How's
look
he
at
not in jail?
And you look at his roster and you're like, what? That doesn't make any sense. Jason has the most points in the league and he has no wins. So you still get some of that randomness, that the fun head-to-head nature of playing against your buddies and it being directly correlated to your success or failure. But it smooths that edge out of someone who's getting really bad beats, or on the opposite side, that team that 11 teams in the league hates that team because they are scoring the second lowest points every single week, but they keep rolling the lucky dice of they get to play the lowest score. So
that pisses me off even more. That pisses me off even more. Like my own losses, when I score a lot and I don't win, it's like so frustrating, but I still have the card in my pocket of like, but look at my points.
Right.
But that dude who makes the playoffs with like 300 fewer points than me, I hate them.
Yes. And it
as a person.
And at the end, after I am not in one currently, but I was in that one for 5 years or so, it didn't drastically change. There wasn't a huge skew of all of a sudden this doesn't make sense who's in the playoffs. It just the 5th and the 6th seeds, it balanced them out more so that the managers who have built a great team over the course of the season are rewarded more than the people who they got 6 really lucky wins.
For your emotional health, I will say, I already hate everybody else in my league. I don't want them to win, don't like the rosters, all that stuff. But then when you're watching on Red Zone, every single play, you do kind of feel it because you're playing against these people's scores.
Yeah.
You're looking at another team, oh, they just went off. Oh, the league median looks a little different this week. But yeah, it's engaging. I think it makes sense, and it's not everything. I think that's what you mentioned, Jason. It's helpful. It's another thing, but you are going to bring it up for a vote. And what's your early take? Do you think it'll pass?
I think 3 years. I think I'll get it. I think our league of record will have league median in 3 years. That's my guess.
Got some curmudgeons.
You need to start canvassing.
Whenever you've got a league that's run for a long time, change is hard.
Yeah, for sure.
And let this be a PSA. Change is not always bad, people. Change is good. Change your opinion, change your league, change your lifestyle. These things can be really good. That's it.
That's a good little platform. All right, let's take one more break, and we'll be right back. I got a juicy question for us from Caleb. It's talking about second-year wide receivers between JSN, Addison, and Tank Dell. Feels like there's a lot of players in the second year who we all think could drastically change their value over the next year. So of these three, who would you keep, trade, or cut?
I like that JSN feels like a second-year player. It's like these second-year players, like
who broke out.
Yeah, I mean, well, Tank Dell is a different year, right, than JSN.
No. These are second-year players. Tank Dell, Jordan Addison.
JSN's only 1 year in, man.
What?
Did you time warp?
Holy crap, I time warped.
Jason, what do you know about the future?
Oh, my gosh.
How did
the
he do?
future is not good,
How
man.
did he do in his second
It's very disappointing.
Tell
his
us.
second year is very disappointing. I'm
He
moving him
scored-
down in my rankings right now.
He scored 0 points.
No, oh my gosh. I freaking time warped. That's insane. JSN's only played 1 year.
Do you have
what
any
just
other
happened
information
to
about
me?
the future or just
What?
JSN?
Just JSN, man.
You can't
What
help-
just happened to me?
Because Addison broke out. Tank Dell broke out. JSN,
That's how you read.
JSN, the chosen one, gave us nothingness.
Wow. Okay.
Jason, you could have
I'm looking at
solved
career
work.
stats. I see only one season, my man. He was
Jason?
yeah.
You could have gone to the future and told us about like how to solve world hunger, something.
No, I
But-
just went and saw that JSN had a very disappointing season too. Okay.
Okay, well, let's compare these three because in Dynasty, it's a different conversation. I think in redraft, we'd all want Tank Dell ahead of the other two.
Correct.
But, you know, JSN comes with, man, look at this production. Look what he did. And at this point, it was what, like 2 or 3 years ago when he was a sophomore?
Yeah.
So it is scary. I have JSN in a Dynasty league, and he holds value just because he was the first wide receiver, but it is scary. So, Jordan Addison, I was looking at some of the numbers. It's like 10 touchdowns. That's awesome. Behind the scenes stuff against zone, yards per out run, it's kind of bad. And then you think part of the year was without Justin Jefferson. So how would you guys keep, trade, cut these three in Dynasty? And obviously we want them all, but
Yeah, man.
I think all three are very, very talented wide receivers. If you put them in the right situation, all three would succeed. So I'm looking at the situation primarily first. And only one of these guys has a really good situation, which is Tank Dell. That's how I see it. He's connected.
Okay.
He's connected to C.J. Stroud, both on their rookie contracts. So you know you've got 4 years together. More than likely, you've got a career or most of their career together. We don't know who the quarterback future of JSN is. I don't think Geno is the long-term answer, and right now he's behind a couple other wide receivers still. Addison's got a rookie quarterback who has not C.J. Strouded yet. So, like, Tank is my number one.
Wow.
That's how I see it. Tank showed something special, and the way that C.J. Stroud talks about Tank Dell.
Yeah, that's fair.
I mean, he sees him as one of the best receivers in the league. He definitely sees him as the best receiver on his team. And that's, you know, I know you've got Nico, I know you've got Stephon Diggs, and that's, you know, you could say, well, what about those two versus DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett? But Diggs we don't know is great. Nico's on his last year of his contract right now. And so I know it's narrative-y, but man, the way C.J. Stroud just
there was a video that Jason's talking about where it was C.J. Stroud was on a podcast and they were building I think he was talking to a defensive player. So he was building his defense Stroud was building his offense, and he's rattling off, like Devontae Adams. I can't remember who the other outside wide receiver, and he's like, "Who you
Probably
got?"
Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, and he's like, "Who
Chase.
you got in the slot?" Oh, is it with Micah Parsons? Thank you, Kyle. And Parsons said, well, "Okay, who you got in the slot?" Tank Dell.
It was never a thought.
Yeah, it was immediate where he's pulling all these who we
You
look
didn't
at
mention
as
Nico, huh?
legendary wide receivers, and then Tank Dell is in there. That was interesting information. So I'm just saying, wow, of having Tank Dell ahead of these other two guys. He probably should be, but it is 1 year into a career. It's very difficult to throw first-round draft capital, first overall wide receiver, the guy that when you were scouting the class, you're like, JSN is an incredible player. Like, it's so hard to move past all of that in 1 year when a guy played 11 games.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's a debate. But obviously, at some point you move on, right? There's no debate. Where do you have Puka? Puka's ahead of those guys. He was a fifth-round pick. Like, he stayed healthy. I think if Tank had been healthy, it would be a little easier. But between Addison and JSN, I don't know. Where are you guys at?
So JSN, the hardest part is his usage, where it was a ton of behind
it was awful. It was
the
stupid.
ADOT was low. It took him a while for them to get full snaps.
Why
and even
are
the
you
games
drafting a player in the first round, like a seemingly luxury pick for your team? You have two really good wide receivers, which that can be argued now. Maybe Lockett's declining, but at that moment in the draft, there's other positions that Seattle really needs, and they took a wide receiver, and then they used him situationally so terribly that it was like, why did you do this? Why did you ruin JSN and the fun for everybody? So they better fix it this year. He
was bad against zone coverage, like really, really bad. 0.96 yards per route run. What is interesting is that it's a change in offensive coordinator from Shane Waldron to Ryan Grubb, who you think about that Washington team, and it's just perfect because you're staying in the same state, Seattle, and you get to look at this team and go, they had three wide receivers they used at Washington, and in the slot, Jalen McMillan, Jalen Polk were like not just like afterthoughts. Like Odunze was incredible, but these other two were like superstars on the field sometimes where they would take over the game. So I think there is a plan and something you could say it's supposed to be a run-first approach. There's a certain point with this team where their defense is so bad, you can't do that every single day. So there is room for JSN.
Yeah, I think the run-first approach is different in the sense that, like, the Rams have a good running approach. The Rams run the ball a lot, but offensively they spread it out. They run against light boxes. They keep three wide receivers on the field. That's not been what Seattle's done, and that is what Seattle's going to do now with this new system. They're going to have they're going to utilize these three wide receivers better. They got rid of some tight ends in the offseason. Now Noah Fant's going to be more of what he should be, and I think this I'm actually a little bit excited about the Seahawks offense going forward.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go Tank Dell. Oh, we're keep trading cut. Man, if I'm going to trade, I think Addison's value is a little bit higher, but for me, then over JSN.
I think JSN's value.
You still think he's held?
I do, because Addison's taken a hit with the loss of the quarterback.
Okay. I like J.J. McCarthy. I think it's going to work.
Yeah, we barely touched on Addison, but I feel like there's this overwhelming sense of like, wow, it can't be better than what it was last year.
It's so wild, man. The NFL is crazy. A full-time starting wide receiver, first-round pick, went 910 as a rookie, and we're like,
yeah. And keep in mind, I love Jordan. He was a my guy for me last year because I thought the talent on film would absolutely work in the NFL, and it did. And so it's hard to – yeah, I mean, come on, McCarthy. Come on, JJ. Be good.
Yeah, targets per route run was only 17.8%. Yards per route run, 1.5. For a first-round wide receiver, he's behind some of the thresholds that we care about. So there are some behind-the-scenes stuff with Addison, not just touchdowns only. Next question, this is a good one from Josh Mitchell. How do you value Bryce Young for Dynasty as a whole? Or you just log out and say, I made a mistake.
Poorly.
It is very difficult seeing so our note here that we have is if QBs don't hit in the first 2 years, like they don't recover their dynasty value.
They're done.
So you are at a very uncomfortable fork in the road for Bryce Young of doubling down on a truly horrific rookie campaign, double down, or bail out and recover whatever value you can from a guy who was, if you're in a super flex, was either the 101 or the 102 last year. And that's a really, really crappy place to be, because when I'm watching Bryce Young play and I'm thinking about recent history, I'm thinking about Zach Wilson, where it's a little different. I didn't like Zach Wilson, the prospect, but watching him play the rookie season, your eyes are telling you this is never going to work. This player, it won't work, and he still held some value into year 2. And if you hadn't got out, you were hosed. Kenny Pickett, watching him that first year, it's like, I don't think that's going to work. And that's the emotions that I have watching what happened to Bryce Young.
I think he is a little bit more similar to Trevor Lawrence in that
it could be that. I was going to say that, but now the team looks like they're improving so much and investing into the new direction that, dude, Bryce Young was the 101. He was a great prospect. And I think that Trevor Lawrence, I think that's a good comp of maybe if I had made the move for Bryce Young and I spent that rookie pick, I'm holding. I'm gonna hold and just be willing to go down with this ship if it doesn't work, because I don't think you're gonna. I think trading him and trying to recover the value versus the risk proposition of failure or success, it's not worth it to me.
I would trade him personally.
You'd get out.
I would try to trade him.
What could you get?
So here's what I would look for. I would look to trade him for a similar young quarterback that I actually believe in more, plus something. So I want to upgrade the quarterback and get something else, because to me, I would rather have Will Levis than Bryce Young.
Oh,
but
man,
nobody wants Will Levis. Like,
that's spicy.
Bryce Young holds more value than Will Levis.
Yes.
Same with I'm just going to throw out a few names here. The rookies, Bo Nix, even Michael Penix. These are guys who are going to have a shot. We've already seen the shot.
You would make a trade with Bryce Young, current starting quarterback, and
Penix
take the
plus?
hit and go to Penix.
Penix plus, yeah, absolutely, I would.
Whoa, man,
That's
spicy.
Because I think there is some room. We just mentioned Trevor Lawrence as a template of it was as bad as it could get as a rookie. Jared Goff's another 101. It was as bad as it could get with Jeff Fisher. And then in both those situations, you have a new coach, a new scheme, and somebody that we like. And I think we like Dave Canales. So at least I've been dunking on Bryce Young every chance I can get, finding every stat of how he's the worst ever. But there is room to do it, and the window is 2 years. So I'm at least giving him room. I don't think he'll ever be anything more than a top 15 quarterback, though. With him not able to run like other guys, it's hard for me to see. He could have a season where he's QB9, QB10. In a super flex, that's fine. I can't do Will Levis, man.
That's kind of my point is if he hits, he's not that great. So if he hits, he's not that great. What's the chance he hits? Let's just call it 50-50. Let's say it's even, that he has a good season and ends up with a career, or just plays like he did last year and flames out. At 50-50 chance of him being, okay, someone you could stream, or maybe in a super flex a little bit more important, that's where like someone like Will Levis, I'd rather take the shot. Like if both of them hit, if Will Levis hits and Bryce Young hits, Will Levis is going to score more fantasy points. I might prefer Bryce Young for an NFL franchise, but not for my fantasy football franchise.
What's Bryce's ceiling outcome for 2024? So like right now we have him ranked, Andy's at 22, Jason's at 26, Mike's at 20. So, nobody's starting him in a one quarterback league, but what's his ceiling?
15.
That was the number that popped into my head. Like, what, dude? With Deontay, with Leggett, maybe. Hey, that's me, Adam Thielen. Maybe he can do some things, and then
Lockjaw.
Is he still on the team?
Is he still? I think he is.
Oh, he's running around in shorts. I saw him the other day.
Marshall's still on the team.
It is It is hopium, but it is what Canales did in back-to-back years for quarterbacks whose careers were toast.
What did Baker finish as this last year? Because Baker,
I think he was QB9, QB10.
QB10.
I don't think Bryce can get there without a Mike. Maybe Leggett is a Mike Evans type.
Yeah,
like
I was just thinking the amount of points
QB 13. I'll bump him up to 13.
The amount of points that Baker got from Rachaad White with the little dump offs. I think Jonathan Brooks is the best addition they made this offseason, and so maybe that pumps up. You know, you saw that a lot for a lot of years with Drew Brees, where those little dump offs, he would just end up with a whole lot of yards. So yeah, maybe quarterback 13. Maybe he has an okay season, but again, I cannot envision a world where Bryce Young helps me win a championship.
Yeah, I think that's a different conversation of fantasy versus NFL. Could he turn the corner?
Yeah, he could turn the corner.
He could turn the corner. And I've been doing a little research about Canales. It's like, okay, what makes him better? What's made it better in Seattle? It's like their teams figured out how to actually beat zone coverage, and Bryce was the worst. I mean, he threw as many zone touchdowns as me this past year. So he was I know. It's sad.
That's Kyle's favorite go-to. Whenever anyone's at a 0 is he's like, he had as many rushing touchdowns as Al Borland.
It's Brooks, Al, or sometimes they'll throw in dead grandmothers. Throw them in there too. All right, another question here from Pitney. Most of my previous fantasy leagues are with coworkers. I started a new job, and not many of my coworkers are interested in fantasy football.
Get a new job.
That's what I did. Recommendation, though, on fantasy leagues to join with people that are excited about Dynasty.
I would say if you are if you're passionate about fantasy football, don't force your office to get a league going. Especially
Dynasty.
It will be a burden. You will not enjoy. You'll probably win, but it will not feel good. It won't be a win that you are excited to talk about with people. So the other way would, like, we started footclanleagues.com. That's kind of what we always say now, but it's part of the Discord for people who are supporters of the show, and you can get access to that by, with a bunch of other really cool stuff as well, but supporting the show at jointhefoot.com. And this forum, or this part of Discord, is right now popping. Like, this thing is going off because it's people who listen to this show. And if you listen to this show or the main footballer show, you are passionate about fantasy football, especially listening right now.
Yeah, you've got a great sense of humor.
So I'm just saying, like, you already have a base level connection with anyone who's on the Discord. If you're listening right now, you know that person likes the game of fantasy football just as much as you, that is the most crucial part of having a good fantasy football league, is people like our ridiculous game.
Yep.
Yeah. And we also, every week, give out an extra podcast. I feel like in the summer, people don't know, but you guys do an extra podcast. And on the podcast, you do a segment where you get to go real fast.
It's time for Rapid Round.
All right, these are Dynasty questions. We'll wrap up with these. Would you trade CeeDee for Pitts and Marv Jr. in Dynasty?
No.
You were scared, Jason. You were terrified.
Final answer, no.
Okay, good. How high in a rookie draft would you expect to get for Jonathan Taylor? So what's the line in a rookie draft?
How high of a pick?
Yes.
I mean, it better be top 5.
Very high.
It should be top 3. I don't know if you can get the 1 for it. Like, if we're talking just this year.
This year.
Okay, you're not going to get Marv for Jonathan Taylor.
I would not trade Jonathan Taylor for the 104.
I agree.
I'm keeping Jonathan Taylor. So it's.
But would you? I mean, just the player name, straight up Jonathan Taylor. If you had him, would you trade him for Odunze or Nabers?
Not Odunze. I would trade him for Nabers, and I would trade him for Marvin.
Would you trade Jordan Love in a Superflex league for Drake May, Xavier Worthy, and a late first?
That's interesting. Superflex.
It's the right price to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a fair value, but no, I'm going to keep Jordan Love.
Bird in the hand.
All right. Garrett Wilson. What about him plus T. Higgins for Lamb?
Garrett Wilson and T.
Higgins for CeeDee Lamb. Who would you rather have?
I talked about I would trade Pittman and
T. Higgins
for CeeDee. So is Garrett Wilson.
How do you feel about Garrett Wilson? Is Garrett Wilson about to make the jump, or is Garrett Wilson about to solidify himself as we're just forever disappointed?
I'm going to take the Lamb side.
I think I take the Lamb side as well. But that one is very tough because Garrett Wilson is on the short list of wide receivers who this year you're like, well, there it is. There's the top 5 guy for next year.
All right, last one in Dynasty. Would you rather stash Justin Fields or Michael Penix?
Dude.
The
freaking Falcons.
They were both supposed to be our starting quarterback this year, and neither of them will.
Penix will definitely get a chance to start in his career, and could Jordan Love, it'll be down the line. He doesn't run the ball at all despite his speed.
I'm going to
go Fields.
I'm going to go Fields.
I think I'll go Fields too, just out of pure sadness. That's going to do it for this episode of the Dynasty Podcast. Make sure you check out the Ultimate Draft Kit, Draft Kit Plus. It's out on Saturday. We'll see you again next week.
Goodbye.
Thanks for listening to the Fantasy Footballers Dynasty Podcast. If you want to take your dynasty skills to the next level, check out thefantasyfootballers.com.